What better way to start the FIA Karting European Championships than at Karting Genk, the home of champions? Racing will be more intense than ever in 2021, with the world still under COVID-19 restrictions. But with the unpredictable weather throwing up rain showers throughout the heats and making tyre strategy an impossible guessing game, the competitors have to stay focused and be more determined than ever before. On board at Karting Genk with Tom Bryken, charging to the first corner where the kart can get loose easily if you miss your braking point by even a metre. Once it tightens, you can get back on the power ready for another big stop into the left-hander. The kart just keeps accelerating through the next two lefts before a good overtaking spot into 5. Brake hard but steady and tuck the kart close to the curb. Then parallel to the bypass, the speed is immense and the big braking zone can catch out many a driver. Avoid the flip-flops on the left or you'll be exceeding track limits. Coax the kart through the double right and balance the throttle, protect the exit and guide the kart back into the left-hand hairpin. You're heading for the grandstand now before a big stop into the right-hander at turn 10. Stay off the curb and you'll get the best line of trajectory for the left. And then another big stop for the final bend. A tight but complex right. But if you turn in precisely, the kart will give you traction and balance, enough to get you over the line with good momentum to do it all over again.
In 2018, Giancarlo Minardi spoke with Toto Wolff. Toto decided to send Gwen Lagrue, that is the boss of Mercedes Junior Driver Program. He saw that I was getting good results. I had the speed, and then they decided to take me. During the whole weekend, I speak a lot with them. I give all the feedback. Obviously, I speak a lot, especially with Gwen. Always also after a race weekend, I explain how it goes.
I think, of course, it affects you quite a bit because it really shows that people are watching you from the top level. Yeah, I think it helps because through the several categories, even if you see champions from Formula 2, even if they don't have a Formula 1 team supporting them and they still win the championship, they don't go to Formula 1 because there's no seat. Of course, you feel really good if a top team is looking at you, and also, of course, it's important for your future if you have a top team looking at you.
It's just been really exciting. Being part of a Formula 1 program is my first time. It's definitely not a golden ticket to the top, and I still need to work incredibly hard. At the end of the day, I just need to deliver results. I think that's the best way to keep people happy, but from the communication point of view, there's not that much going on behind the scenes. It's sort of just, I'm doing my own thing and just doing as best as I can.
I was the youngest at the time to get sponsored by a Formula 1 team. And you know, Mercedes is such a big family and they're really at the top of their game right now in Formula 1. So I was very happy, not only for myself, but for my family and the rest of my country and the whole Caribbean, because I know how much I've given up and my whole family have given up so much for me. So I kind of felt that brought me one step closer. I still have a long way to go, but I know that Mercedes will do their best to try and get me to Formula 1, hopefully one day.
I'm very happy to be supported by McLaren. They're a very big team in Formula 1, and I hope to drive for them in the future. Not much has changed from my career for now. I'm still in karting, still with Kart Republic, and I just have to do the best job I can. We got a call from Zach Brown. We heard that they were interested in talking to us. I'm confident in this year, I'm confident in this season that I could do well. So I'm happy for the support and we'll see how it goes.
That was when I was in Le Mans for the World Championship, and they told me that I would be participating in the Sauber Academy, which was fantastic for me. It's really nice to have a Formula 1 team supporting you. And yeah, like I said, doesn't really change my personal tour weekend because for me there's no pressure, it's my rookie year. I'm really taking it as an opportunity and I'm just still trying to do the best I can.
I was lucky to be chosen out of Australia. Then we go into a camp, a scouting camp in Maranello itself, where we do some mental training, where we do physical training, and we actually do 2 days in the Formula 4 car at the end of the week. And then after a couple of months, they work out who is the best suited for the position, and I got the amazing call on January 1st this year, and it was the best it's been. It took a couple of months really until I got back over in Europe to really work out what just happened for my career itself. So yeah, very good.
One team like Formula 1 put effort to young driver and they choose our team For us, it's very good things for sure. On the past, the same situation. If we go back more than 20 years ago, we have a Lewis, we have a Nico Rosberg, we have a Kubica sometimes, and we try our best. We try to teach to him how is to be professional driver, step by step. This is like the primary school to be Formula One driver.
To be honest with you, under the technical aspect, there's no interference from Ferrari. But what I feel is that they are very keen to know what driver has been doing over the race weekends. They are focusing on their approach, and I see they want the drivers to start at a young age to develop a professional approach to the race meetings and the work as a driver.
Ian Eichmans would start the final from pole position on home soil, with reigning world champion Freddie Slater alongside him, but on the outside line and at a big disadvantage. As the field went into turn 1, Akshay Bora and Dion Gauda, the two young men from Singapore, were able to gain a decent position to follow and pursue the leader Eichmans and slot in ahead of Slater. Lucas Samalisto and Matthias Ferreira made light work of Alex Powell on the run to turn 5, where Paralin's young Emirati Rashid Al-Daheri made his own move to pass. Eichmans, Bora and Gauda were already starting to battle up front, with Slater keeping a watching brief, whilst further back behind them there would be plenty of drama. Jan Puchu and Joel Bergstrom ended up parked together at turn 6, with several drivers forced to take avoiding action. Up front, Eichmans was defending already, eagerly hoping to capitalise on his early weekend form, having won 4 times in 5 heats leading up to the final. But with this being his first major taste of racing at this level, even local knowledge wasn't enough to keep the freight train behind him. Bora, Gauda and Slater were all able to squeeze through at the first corner, leaving Eichmans to slip from 1st to 4th. So now it was a Singapore 1-2 with Slater in 3rd position. Now the leader started to increase his pace in his hope to get away, but Slater wasn't prepared to wait around for long and made a bold overtake into turn 9 on teammate Gauda. Now he was back into 2nd position again. Eichmans soon edged himself back into contention with a solid move in the final hairpin back into 3rd, whilst Al-Daheri and Maxime Rem were making a fierce race of it with Samalisto and Ferreira. Gauda retaliated against Eichmans, but it would only last a few metres as Eichmans took the place back instantly. Enzo Deligny was now joining the cavalcade, which was starting to form up rapidly behind the battle for the podium. Gauda was adamant that he could finish on the podium and tried again into turn 5, only for Eichmans to take back the move on the undercut again. But as Gauda veered wide on the exit, he was fortunate to stay on the road and lost out to his teammate Maxime Rem and the Jamaican star Alex Powell. Rashid Al-Daheri made his next bid and passed Gauda, but then civil war broke out at Kart Republic as Samalisto tapped his teammate Ferreira into an airborne spin, which dropped both drivers down the order. So, whilst the battle continued with plenty of aggression in the midfield, Slater had been hunting down Bora, and when the moment presented itself to the young British driver into turn 1, the world champion didn't need to be asked twice. Freddie Slater was now in front, but one of the local heroes was out of the race. Tom Braken's solid weekend for Stanpex Motorsport had ended in disappointment. Deligny was now becoming a force to be reckoned with, and he made a passing move on Dion Gauda. But despite making a successful move into the final corner, Gauda wasn't prepared to play ball and made the same move into the first corner to retake the position. However, Deligny was relentless and forced the issue again in the next apex. 3 moves in 3 corners, and Deligny was the victor. Harley Kiebel had been working his way through the field after a tricky weekend at the office, but now he was giving pressure to Al-Daheri on the Paralin chassis. Down the main straight, he lined up the textbook passing manoeuvre and made it look quite straightforward. It turned out he wasn't done yet, as a lap later he caught and passed Maxime Rem into turn 5. Rashid Al-Daheri had realised that following Kiebel was a smart move, as the Tony Kart clearly had pace. So without hesitation, Al-Daheri moved ahead of Rem to stay on Kiebel's tail. Elsewhere, the race ended abruptly for Matthias Ferreira, who never recovered from that airtime and left the race with wildcard Kevin Lantinga. Julius Dinesen and August Therbo were making up for lost time in the heats and set their sights firmly on Edgar Anpiligov, and with safety in numbers, the pair were able to sweep by. A difficult weekend for all three drivers, but proof that in karting, you never give up. The lead battle had fizzled out somewhat, as Slater was setting qualifying pace in a bid to stretch his margin and put the victory beyond doubt. His French teammates were almost at war as Maxime Verbruge tangled with Anpiligov, who narrowly avoided a huge disaster. Whilst one Ricky Flynn Motorsport driver was struggling, the other was in a world of his own up front, ahead of Bora and Eichmanns. Then it was Augustin Bernier's turn to deal with Anpiligov. Up front, Eichmanns had caught up to Bora, and with no chance to make a move, it wasn't long before Alex Powell had caught them both. But there were battles throughout the field wherever you looked, as Arthur Poulain and Leon Hoffmann were demonstrating. As the race drew to a conclusion, it became a battle of nerves, as Bora kept his cool despite the mounting pressure from Eichmanns and Powell. One mistake, and his whole weekend could dissolve in an instant. Instead of buckling under the intimidation, he rose to the challenge and started to set fast laps in order to get away. But Freddie Slater was totally in command. Having been one of the fastest drivers from qualifying, then with 3 wins and 2 third places in the heats, he had more than justified his position at the front of the field at Genk. In 2020, he had failed to win a race in OK Junior until the World Championship weekend at Portimao. But having taken the win at such a tender young age, Slater knew he would have to stay in Junior for another season. Rather than letting this become a source of irritation and frustration, he chose to build upon that form and take on an inner strength to storm ahead. It may be very early days in the 2021 title campaign, but his ruthless efficiency, incredible discipline and flawless speed mark him out as the early favourite to become European champion. For the Ricky Flynn Motorsport team, it couldn't have ended better for their young man. Akshay Bora stayed focused under pressure from Ian Eichmanns, who took a very popular podium in his homeland. As Slater was celebrating on the slowing down lap, another competitor would have to accept that this wasn't his day. Matteo De Palo ended his race on the final bend after an intense scrap with Maxime Verbruge and Jules Caranta. But Slater was triumphant ahead of Bora and Eichmanns. Alex Powell took his best finish in an OK Junior FIA final, with Kiebel and Aldaherri rounding out the top 6, and with Josh Erfen quietly making progress to 7th ahead of Samalisto, Deligny and Maxime Rem. For the first time since the pandemic outbreak, the drivers could enjoy a fizzy celebration on the podium, and both Freddie Slater and Akshay Bora made it very clear who they wanted to share the moment with. This weekend had been all about the teamwork, and they were both overjoyed and adamant that they couldn't have had any better support.
Yeah, I think it's been a very good weekend, very consistent, all the results have been good. Lots of points taken away from this round, which is the main thing for this championship. I think the team has done a great job. My mechanic, Craig Boyd, my family, all my supporters, and they've all just supported me all the way, and I think we've all done a great job over the weekend. We qualified first overall, which was definitely an accomplishment, especially at this amazing track in this amazing country. The heats were pretty hard with the changing conditions. The start was really good, and then after I was lacking a little bit in pace, and yeah, so we managed P2, which is an amazing result, and only the first of 4 rounds, so good points.
Yeah, the speed was quite good through all the weekend, especially in the rain, but in the dry we were a bit off the pace of Freddie. So I tried to manage to get P3, and that was the maximum we could get.
Amazing performance from Fred, stunning drive. He's a real talent going forward, so watch out for him because he's going to go a long, long way in this sport. It was also a very good team performance. As you see, we had 3 in the top 7 for the final. So amazing from everybody in the team, all the lads that work there, day in, day out, and put in so much effort. It culminated in a fantastic result today, so very happy.
With Arvid Lindblad and Rafael Camara sharing the front row, it took a baffling 3 attempts to start the race. When the lights did go out, Juho Valtonen stepped up the attack and slotted in behind Lindblad. As the field made their way to the far side of the circuit, Andrei Zhivnov stepped up his own attack and made his move on Camara to move up into third. It wasn't looking great for the Brazilian, whilst in contrast, it was looking spectacular for the Italian star Edoardo Villa, who had rocketed forward to 5th place. The race ended early for Alfie Ospina, making his debut for Parolin. Villa was already starting to put pressure on Camara to speed up, as both men were eager not to let the leading pair move too far ahead of the others. Lindblad had been unbeaten over the course of the weekend, and Valtonen had been in resurgent form with the Stanpex Motorsport team. But if Camara was going to have a chance to join them on the podium, he would need to make an impression early. Heading into turn 1 at the start of the second lap, he pounced on Zhivnov and was in no mood to wait around. Lindblad and Valtonen were still doing everything they could to pull away from the pack, but it was a very satisfying start for Villa, who made his move on Zhivnov, almost taking the Russian by surprise. Valtonen hadn't led a final since Alacharma in 2019, but with this feisty move on Lindblad, the Flying Finn was back in front. But now that Camara had made the move into third, he appeared to gain speed and confidence in the kart, and was now in pursuit of Lindblad. It wouldn't take long, and at the end of the lap, Camara was through, making a clean break on the inside line. Lindblad needed to bounce back and fast. Reclaiming the place would have given him the upper hand psychologically, but Camara clearly knew that and wouldn't let him have a chance of an overtake into turn 1. The next task was clear: catch Valtonen before Lindblad could pass again. Further back, rush hour was well underway in the midfield, as Morgan Porter and Laurence de Certeau were trying desperately to hold their ground from half a dozen opponents. But before long, attention turned back to the leaders, and on the motorway straight, Camara made a simple manoeuvre and claimed the lead of the race, backing Valtonen into the path of Lindblad. Camara then started to push in order to increase the lead, and it wouldn't be long before Lindblad made his own way past Valtonen. Much to his dismay, Camara had already driven far off into the distance. Edoardo Villa realised how close he was to a podium on his FIA Karting debut and started to intensify the pressure on Valtonen. On the run-up to turn 5, he waited until Valtonen was distracted by Lindblad and seized his chance, a move that looked plain sailing. This was too much for Valtonen to accept, and he stormed back up the inside with a forceful slide that was enough to keep Villa at bay. For now. Behind Andrei Zhivnov, the next man to make a move was Martinius Stenshorn. At the final corner, he moved up to 5th. Behind these two, Nikolai Tsolov was looking for his own chance to move up the ranks, and he dived ahead of Zhivnov at turn 1. Little did he know at that point how strong a race he was about to have. This move gave him the resurgence to push harder, wearing the junior karting colours of Fernando Alonso, who had won the European junior title at Genk 25 years before. Stenshorn didn't even have time to react when Tsolov made his move, but there was drama on the horizon. Despite his fantastic moves through the field, Tsolov was carrying a penalty, and he knew it. In an earlier incident, his front fairing had come loose. He was destined to receive a 5-second penalty for the transgression. But how far up the field could he climb before he'd have to take it? For now, he was in 5th, and the damage to the front fairing was plain for all to see. But a few kart lengths ahead, Edoardo Villa was about to give the Bulgarian a chance to move up, as he made a bold last-minute lunge into turn 1 and snatched 3rd position at the last possible moment. The Italian then promptly dropped the anchor and started to defend, much to Valtonen's frustration. Tsolov decided to drive around them both, but regrettably he couldn't quite fit his kart on the outside line. Another half lap of patience and Tsolov was rewarded. Now he was up to 4th position. Behind them, Stenshorn and Zhivnov had now been caught by James Wharton, Ariel Elkin and Yugo Yugachukwu, and a titanic struggle for position was now well underway. In the first corner, half of them almost crashed out on the spot, but they just managed to stay out of harm's way. Whilst they continued their squabble, Joe Turney took the chance to slot into the gap, and now he was making huge strides forward too. Matthias Morgato of the Birolot squad was starting to work his way through the pack too. And as they both dived on Zhivnov into turn 10, it was only inevitable with so many drivers fighting that there could be one or two to take the fall. Driving through his frustrations, Solov made the overtake on Villa to move up into third position. But he was running out of time, and with 5 seconds due to be added to his race time, he'd need a miracle. Andrea Kimi Antonelli's weekend of misfortune continued as he found himself fighting with Lars van Vark and Martinius Stenshorn. But when the chances came to make overtaking moves, Antonelli proved he's lost none of his commitment or determination. Emili Koivisto would join the retirements list with his kart parked in an awkward position. But once the yellow flags were cleared, Stenshorn saw an opportunity and passed Brando Badua for another step forward. Even local hero Yannick de Brabanda was having fun, as the Praga driver made short work of Badua himself. Then, for the first time in 2021, last year's two European champions met, Antonelli and Yugachukwu, which this time would go to Antonelli after a smooth move past the American. Solov was pushing like crazy to improve his position, and Lindblad was resigned to being runner-up. So when his team told him to move over and let Solov through, he may have hesitated, but he did as he was told. He backed off on the home straight, allowing the Bulgarian to charge into second in a bid to catch Camara. Once Lindblad was aware that he could still finish second, he decided to accept his fate and keep himself ahead of the chasing pack so as not to lose second. Over the next few laps, Solov pushed harder than ever before and decreased the gap with every ounce of energy he possessed. Knowing he had a penalty to take, he threw caution to the wind and went for it. Any chance he may have had at the podium at that point, there was no way he'd be circumspect. He wanted the win for pride more than anything else. But Camara displayed the wisdom and character beyond his years and took an incredibly important victory. Not just because it was the first of the season to start the ball rolling, but also because his home nation is due to host the World Championships in October, and there's no denying that a chance of a home winner would send the whole Brazilian karting paddock into fever pitch. As the final corner approached, Camara realised his objective and stormed to the checkered flag, his joy being tempered by Solov's despair. But it was the Brazilian driver who had been truly spectacular across the whole month, and now we'd have to wait for Esse to see if he could do it all again. Rafael Camara secured victory ahead of Lindblad and Villa, with Valtonen placing ahead of Solov once the Bulgarian's penalty was applied. Joe Turney finished 6th ahead of Antonelli and Morgato, whilst Artem Sevrukin narrowly managed to cross the line ahead of Hugo Yugachukwu. It was wonderful to witness the joy of Eduardo Villa taking his first podium at international level. But we couldn't help but wonder just how intense the battle between Camara and Lindblad was likely to become. For now, it's a strong rivalry and an amiable conduct between friends. But will it stay that way?
After the speed was good, I can catch Valtonen and Lindblad. After I think 10 laps, I go away from Lindblad. And then after Solov was more fast, try to manage to don't arrive so much.
I could see he was catching me very quickly, but then my mechanic also just showed me to let him pass. Yeah, I feel bad for Nicola as well. I think he's done a great job this week. He's been really fast and deserved to be on the podium. Yeah, in the final we weren't good enough. Rafa was better this final. He deserved to win.
I had a really good start. I pushed a lot from the beginning. Yeah, I did P4 in the end, but P3 with the penalty of Solov.
It is a very tough weekend for the weather condition. Fortunately, we have both fine and dry condition, make a more normal situation for everybody. And at the end, I am very satisfied in OKJ and OK class.
So as Freddie Slater picks up where he left off in 2020 with a rejuvenated new field of opponents to battle against him, and the new rivalry in OK Senior begins between Kart Republic teammates Arvid Lindblad and Rafael Camara, there's plenty for karting fans to get excited about. Genk is done and dusted, but the field now moves to Ornay-le-Bois in Essay in France, near the ancient motorsport town of Le Mans, in a fortnight, where the battles will resume.